Venti is very likely the most powerful of all the Archons. I'm not baiting or joking. In fact, you've probably considered it already. There are a lot of clues scattered about to back up this claim, and I'm going to explain each one. Funny enough, the Hexenzirkel is also relevant, so I'll be explaining them too. This is the Unlikely Genshin Gamer, and we're about to pull back the curtain on one of Venti's biggest secrets. Perhaps the most suspicious clue we have is that Venti has seemingly lied about what makes an Archon powerful to begin with. And by the conventional definition that is found in both the history books and in the mouths of other Archons, he would be, instead of the weakest, as he claims, the strongest. This is what Venti had to say about his own strength way back in the beginning of the game.
The Seven, as people now know them, were once known as the Seven Archons. Each Archon presides over their own part of Teyvat. That is the role the Archons play. Only in performing this duty can we attain power. But I don't like the idea of ruling Mondstadt, and I don't feel Mondstadt would really like it either.
Now, by his definition, of course, this would make him very weak. He is, in fact, the most absentee of Archons. Of those we know, this definition would make the Raiden Shogun the strongest instead. But there is a reason to believe this simply isn't true. The first hint was Nahida's admittance to her own weakness, using the seemingly established notion that an Archon's power comes from the people's faith in them. Sadly, her people had no faith in her because of the propaganda of the academia, and it showed. As wise as she is, her sheer power is lacking. And what's more, this phenomena has been documented in Venti's case as well, although he would like for us to believe otherwise. In the biography of Gunhilder, the illustrious ancient history of Jean's family, we learn of the origins of the power of the tiny wind spirit, split off of the shade of time, who would grow to become the Anemo Archon. Back then, 2,600 years ago, Decarabian, the god of storms, was ruling as a tyrant in Old Mondstadt, now known as Storm Terror's lair. And outside the walls of his brutal, windswept kingdom were unbearable blizzards from Andreas the Wolf, who was Decarabian's nemesis. The Gunhilder clan were the tyrant king's knights, but eventually could no longer stomach his cruelty, and so they left him and the city and suffered in the storms of snow outside the city walls instead. The clan chief's daughter, Gunhilder, would become the namesake of the clan through the deeds that followed. Just when all hope seemed to be lost for the wandering clan, a spirit from the midst of the myriad winds heard Gunhilder's prayers. The sincere plea of a clan chief's young daughter joined with a people's cry of help, a cry that the blizzard had all but drowned out, and became a faith. The faith gathered in front of the wind spirit like water flowing into a spring, and became the source from which the wind spirit drew its power. The wind spirit used this power to make a small shelter for the clan, and bestowed upon the clan chief's daughter the power to protect. This is an excerpt from the biography. And after this and the eventual victory over Decarabian, a constant that remained and grew was the people's faith in the wind spirit, led by Gunhilder, whose descendants established the church. Faith in that wind spirit has become an actual faith. No other Archon is worshipped in this traditional sense. If the prayers and songs that gave that tiny wind spirit strength back then are what Barbara the deaconess, a Gunhilder descendant, and the rest of sisters at the church singing praises to Venti every day, I dare say the people's faith in him is astronomical. But then we also have another point, which many people have noted before, which is the fact that the grand game of chess that seems to be being played by powerful unseen entities featured Venti's Gnosis as the most powerful piece in the game, the Queen. Now, the Gnosis is a curse, according to Skirk, formed from the remains of a powerful dead descender to encase the knowledge and power of the 7 primordial elements, the ones that corresponded to the dragons of old. And all the other splinters of these elements, for example, the god of storms, was stamped out during the Archon War. Yes, we all know this familiar history now, but why are they designed in the shape of chess pieces? And is the Queen attributed to Anemo or to the Anemo Archon? That is to say, is Anemo the strongest element in the game? Does it contain the most profound knowledge? Or was Venti awarded the Gnosis with the most power on that figurative board because he in particular was deserving of it? I'm inclined to think that the Gnosis pieces contain the element that corresponds to their positions in the game, which would mean that Anemo's reach and influence, just like that of the Queen, outstrips those of the other elements. If the Anemo element really does enjoy such prestige, then it would lend credence to the reason why Mondstadt, as much as no one wants to admit it, is in the crosshairs of some, if not most, of the most powerful entities in the world of Teyvat, like the Abyss, the Conrians, and the Witches. Which brings me to the Hexenzirkel. The fact that this mysterious club of powerful women have set their sights on Mondstadt is very telling. Way back in the day, we got our first introduction to that name from Lisa, the Witch of the Purple Rose, who told us that it was an organization who studied Irminsul, which she had no interest in joining. Back then, we didn't even know what Irminsul was. Fast forward to now, and the picture is much clearer. Irminsul is the literal data storage and render engine of Teyvat. It's the very backbone of the entire natural system of the world, and there are powerful people studying it. A circle of witches called the Hexenzirkel, which in fact means Circle of Witches in Old Germanic. There appear to be 8 members, but Alice didn't make it clear whether that was just the current membership or if there are only ever 8. Of these, 4 have had their power level, so to speak, pretty clearly defined by events in the game up to this point. When you consider their comparative power in the world of Teyvat, you'll realize why it is very interesting that the likes of them have converged on Mondstadt, putting down roots there and even challenging Venti for an unknown reason in the distant past. Alice, the eccentric Pyro Mage, who is Klee's doting mother, is perhaps the best known. In terms of how powerful she is, Albedo describes her as near omnipotent. She can raise the Golden Apple Archipelago, a mysterious, well-hidden island chain, at will to give her daughter a summer holiday. She easily gave refuge to a very powerful fleeing Oceanid after the Cataclysm, and is definitely aware of various descenders. I'm certain that she is secretly keeping tabs on the Traveler's sibling. In fact, she could very well be an alien to Teyvat too. You see, we garner more clues about her than you may think from the collected miscellanies she's voiced, most notably Wanderers. In that video, she reveals that the Irminsul edit he did had no effect on her, and she tells us that she has been given a task of studying Teyvat and its rules, which allows her certain liberties. It's implied elsewhere that she may very well be able to become invisible, moving around unseen. There's also another reason I think she is from somewhere else. In an obscure line most may have forgotten, spoken by the self-destructive adventurer Jichong, we find out that Alice made a very specific reference that immediately led me to believe that she is aware of or from Earth. Jichong, voicing her hopes of making a name for herself and conquering unknown territory like the chasm, borrowed a phrase from Alice, saying, "The chasm may be her Rubicon." What is a Rubicon? Well, depending on who you ask, you might hear that it's a line of American-made Jeeps known to be robust. But they, in turn, are named after a morsel of history that Alice shouldn't be able to know. It refers to a turning point in Julius Caesar's campaign to conquer the Roman Republic, leading to the forming of the empire. He famously crossed this river named the Rubicon, saying, "The die is cast." And this action effectively declared war on the provinces of the Republic, which he knew it would. The word came to represent crossing a point of no return or committing to something risky wholeheartedly. And while this is very fascinating, the question is, why does Alice know this term? Obviously, there is no equivalent situation in Teyvat. The traveler and Jichong didn't understand it either, and eventually chalked it up to Alice's experience as an adventurer. Experience indeed. She is known as an elder amongst the Hexenzirkel. Next, we have Nicole, codenamed N, who is very much aware of the nature of Irminsul, perhaps more than the keeper of Irminsul herself, Nahida. She is aware of its structure and that edits can be done to it, but is immune to these edits herself. She can speak into the minds of people at will, something only one directly connected to Irminsul can do, and can even advise on ways to circumvent preordained eventualities, apparently aware of backdoors in the system. She even seems to know the future, which Nahida told us is the ultimate kind of wisdom, one not even she herself can know. Then we have Barbeloth, Mona's master. According to Mona, she's an extremely powerful visionary, one who would have the capability to scry the fortunes of everyone in Teyvat at once. You see, Mona explained that to foresee the outcome of something as vastly felt as the flood in Fontaine, which would have repercussions on everyone in Teyvat, it would take more than a mere astrologist, but instead a visionary, and a powerful one at that. But that Barbeloth could do it. She also appears to be extremely old. And then, of course, we have Gold, or Rhinedottir, perhaps the most formidable of them all. Gold's many deeds are probably well known by now, but they still bear mentioning. Rhinedottir is a researcher from Conria, but is also described as a flower not of this world. Her most notable deeds are the creation of the abyss creatures, Durin, Elinus, the massive dragon that plagued Fontaine and gave rise to the Melazines, the devastating Rift Wolves, and the Golden Wolf King, among others. She is also credited with beginning the Cataclysm, using her art of Chemia that killed at least 3 Archons, and her most prized creation is her genius son, Albedo, the successful product of the Primordial Human Project. The magnitude of that particular achievement is shrouded in mystery, but I can tell you that after studying the works and theories that Narcissan crews of Fontaine understood in his time, it's safe to say that a primordial human is of the utmost importance. And to cap off this illustrious list of devastating achievements, she is a contemporary to Sertologi the Foul, Skirk's master. The two of them being the type of people who consider the all-devouring narwhal a pet. Now, my question is, why is it that the likes of Gold, Alice, Nicole, and Barbeloth, as well as the others, would challenge Venti? What did they want from him? I'm especially interested in whether they challenged him as a whole. Seems like overkill, right? Or not. And how did he go from being in their crosshairs to now being the safekeeper of some of their most prized possessions? Like the special lantern to signal their gatherings, Alice's precious daughter Clee, and Gold's chalk prints. If you think about it, a lot of stuff is hidden in Mondstadt. Like Conria's Last Hope, and even the mysterious book, The Pale Princess and the Six Pygmies, which the Abyss insists contains hidden secrets, is tucked away in Venti's domain. I think the answers to these questions are being hidden from prying eyes by the facade of lackadaisical excess that Venti faithfully upholds. He seems to be playing a game that even some of the other Archons aren't privy to. Obviously, this is why we haven't gotten his second story quest yet. Now, if that isn't enough to convince you that he's hiding something serious, I've saved the best one for last. As I was making my video analyzing Fontaine's orphan situation, I realized that Mondstadt is as happy as it is not only because of their laid-back nature, but because of something Venti is doing to them. I think the songs Venti is so fond of are a secretive, powerful tranquilizer. Now, before you dismiss this, hear me out. Diona gives us a clue that such a thing is possible. In the poetry event back in version 4.2 with Caliroe the Oceanid, it became clear that as a powerful hydro-elemental being, Caliroe was able to bestow Diona with a gift that makes every drink she prepares a delight to the recipient, even if it's poison. Because some of the stuff Diona mixes together should not be consumed. But it never fails to work. Caliroe herself was in turn soothed and replenished in power by Venti's music when she took up residence in Springvale Pond. The sounds of Venti's lyre were also able to bring Xiao back from the brink of madness, easing the pain of the accumulated evil in him from his constant war with the curses that stain Liyue. And, if not for the interruption of the Traveler way back when he was soothing Dvalin, there might not have been a Storm Terror chapter of the story, because Venti was effectively reversing the abyssal corruption in the dragon before the magic was messed up. Music is the backbone of Mondstadt. Songs sung in praise to Venti or by him himself constantly serenade the people, rendering most of them almost carelessly unburdened. And his songs and bard tales are probably hiding a myriad of truths about Teyvat, tucked away from the altering power of Irminsul. This mysterious wind spirit, who can bring voices back from the distant past and carry lost souls to their rest, who is now a friend to a circle of witches who seem to hold the world in their hands, is definitely hiding something big. At this point, I'm not even sure whose side he's really on. So, what about you? Does Venti seem sus? Or do you think he really is the helpless bard he wants everyone to believe he is? Let's discuss it in the comments. And to everyone who subscribes, shares, likes, and sends a super thanks my way. Thank you immensely. And I'll see you in the next one.